Now this video will talk you through the AQA 2018 November Foundation Paper 2 Calculator exam. Now if you haven't got access to a paper, there will be a downloadable link in the description below for you to have a go at this paper. So with the first question, it says here is a rectangle and we've got the dimensions of 7 by 5 centimeters, and the question is asking us to work out the perimeter. Now to work out the perimeter, what we need to do is we need to add up all the sides together. So we can see we've got two missing sides. So that's going to be 7, that's going to be 5. So all I need to do here is just add 7 plus 5 plus 7 plus 5, which gives me 24 centimeters. So therefore I just need to circle 24 centimeters. For the next question, it then says to circle the number that is greater than minus 0.9. Now just be careful with the words greater and the fact that we've got minus 0.9. So the one thing that we probably need to convert is all of them are in decimals apart from this one here, which is going to be equal to minus 0.9. Now when you think greater, you're thinking as a digit as being bigger than 0.9, so you might be tempted to go for the third option, when actually the correct answer is minus 0.89. And then with question 3, it's asking us to collect like terms. So here we've got 8x, take away 6x, which is 2x, and sorry, it should be plus. So here again, let me just get rid of that. So 8x plus 6x, which is 14x, and then we've got minus 3, and that can be found as the fourth option. And then finally with question 4, it's saying what is the angle for a turn clockwise to southwest. Now if we just complete the measurements, now north southwest is this measurement here. Now when dealing with this, what we've got to recognize is every quarter turn, so that's 90, that's going to be 90, and this is going to be half of 90, which is 45. So I've got to do 90 plus 90 plus 45, which gives me 225. So it's the third one that I need to circle. Now when it comes to question 5, now with question 5, what I need to do is read the question carefully. So it says Lucy works for 37 hours per week. Her weekly wage is £303.40, and she receives a pay increase of 25 pence per hour. Work out her new weekly wage. So the first thing we need to do is work out how much she earns per hour. So for this, what we need to do is we need to do her wage per hour. What I should really be doing is doing it here rather. So wage per hour, and that's going to be 303.40 divided by 37. And if I type that into my calculator, so I'm going to do here, so 303.4 divided by 37 means that she's getting a wage of £8.20 per hour. So £8.20 per hour. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add 25%, because 25 pence rather, to her wage. So a new hourly wage is going to be £8.45. And so what I need to do is work out her new weekly wage. Well, if she's working 37 hours, I need to do so new weekly wage is going to be £8.45 times 37, because that's how many hours that she's working. So again, I type that straight into my calculator, 8.45 times 37 equals, and that's 312.65 pence. So 312.65 pence. And then moving on to question 6a. Now 6a says complete the bank statement. Now when it comes to credit, that is how much that's going into your bank account, so it's going in, and debit is what's going out. So the debit is what you're spending, and going in is what's going into your wage, which kind of reflects into, if you look at common sense, and you always need a bit of common sense. So car repairs, that's money you're paying. Gas bill is what you're paying, but salary is what someone is paying into you. So what we need to do for the first one is we need to take away our current balance, which is 1140.79 minus 256. And again, I'm going to type that straight into my calculator. So I've got 1140.79 minus 256, which gives me an answer of 8847988479. Now I don't need to worry about the pound sign because that's already given to me. So for the next one, what I need to do is 884.79 minus £87.31. So again, if I've got it, still got the 884 still on my calculator, I'm just going to take away 87.31 equals, press the SD button, that gives me a total of 797.48. And then finally, for the last one, for the balance, I need to add 69.75. So it's going to be 797.48 plus 2069.75. And again, get my calculator. And again, I've still got the existing amount on, so I can just add that to the salary, giving me a final answer of 28.67 and 23 pence. And there is my final answer. Now, where the 3 marks will be gained is from basically you filling in the correct numbers, and you get 1 mark for each one. So 6b then says write down the meaning of debit as used on the bank statement. So again, in terms of what it actually means, so this is basically debit is money. Oh, don't be writing with a highlighter. Is money being taken out of the account. Now you could probably get away with money being spent, or for example, and so that would be absolutely fine. Or something that you've paid, or the amount that comes off your balance, anything along those lines will be absolutely fine. And then moving on to question 7. Now question 7 saying that we've got line AB is shown on the grid, and A is giving us the coordinate of 0, 2, and B is given the coordinate of 6, 5, and 7a is asked us to work out the coordinates of the midpoint of AB. Now there's several ways you can do this depending on how you've been taught. You might have learned the midpoint formula, or you can just do it by sight. Now the midpoint of this particular line is this point here. Now that point there, and again remembering that we go across first, then up. So it's going to be 3 and then 3.5. Now if you wrote 3.5, that's absolutely fine. Not going to lose any marks for doing that, but that is entirely up to you. And then looking and scrolling down to 7b, so it says that C is another point on the line AB. C is closer to B than A, and the coordinates are whole numbers. So we need to go back to this particular point here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of those lines. Now this here is our midpoint point, which I'm just going to label as M. Now C is somewhere where it's closer to B than it is A, so we're looking somewhere along this part of the line, which I'm just going to shade in blue. Now what we're looking for is a whole number coordinate, so we're not looking for anything that lies, let's say, in between the boxes. We want it smack bang right in the cross of those coordinates. Now there's only one coordinate, which is this one here, so that is where C is going to be, and that coordinate there is 4, 4. So what I'm going to enter here is 4, 4. And then finally it says for 7c, it says on the grid draw a line from point 0, 0 that is 1 parallel to AB and 2/3 as long as AB. So what we're looking for is the line's got to start at this point here, and it's got to be parallel to the line AB. Now if I just draw a line that is parallel to AB, now with B it's basically going across 2 up 1. So if I go across 1 up 1, across 2 up 1, across 2 up 1, then this gives me a line that is parallel to the line AB and it goes through 0, 0. But the question is saying that it's got to be 2/3 as long. So if I divide this line into 3 sections, like so, I only want 2 of those 3 points. So what I need to do is get rid of this point here. And what I probably need to do is accurately, let's see if I can do this. And if it's going to allow me to do it. Yeah, oh, yeah, and there it is. And let's just get a rubber just to neaten it all up, hopefully without deleting that line that I've just drawn. And there we go, there is my line there. Just making sure that it does cross through the origin of 0, 0, but that would be absolutely fine for 7C. And there we go. So you'd get 1 mark for it being parallel and going through 0, 0, and then 1 mark for it being 2/3, and that's where your 2 marks would come from. Moving on to question 8. So question 8 is listing outcomes. So it says that Lena is at the gym and she will use each of these pieces of equipment once. Lena will use the rowing machine first, list all the possible outcomes that she could have. So again, what we're doing here is she's going to use each one at least once. So we know that we're definitely going to have R going first. So I could kind of like write R. Now, whenever you're doing list of outcomes, you kind of want to make sure that you've got some form of system, because if you're just randomly picking them, it's not going to, you're easily going to make some mistakes. It's also quick if you do it systematically as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with S, and I'm going to go for T, B, and then B, T. And so all I've done there is I've just picked all the possible outcomes of picking the stepper going twice. So now I'm going to go for the treadmill being second. So I could either have the stepper or the bike, or I could have the bike and the stepper. And then moving on to the bike, well, I can either have the stepper and the bike, or I can, oh, not the bike, because I've already got that twice, or the treadmill. Or I could have the bike, the treadmill, and the stepper. And again, not forgetting the R in front of each of those possible outcomes. And then moving on to question 8b. Now with question 8b, it says that the table shows how long Lena spends on each piece of equipment. It says Lena starts on the rowing machine at 1:50 p.m. She has a break of 4 minutes between each piece of equipment. What time does she finish on each piece of the equipment? Now, depending on how you wanted to work with this, it's entirely up to you. Now, the question is asking us what time does she finish. So that's really, really important. So what we need to do is we need to start at 1:50, and there's several ways in which you could do this. You can either work out what the total amount she's going to spend with those 4 minutes in between. So let's just add those 4 minutes. So 4, 4, and 4. So let's have a look at adding all these together. So what I've got is I've got 15, 4. Let's go for, let me go back, get rubber. And there's several ways in which you can do this. As long as you're getting the correct answer and you're showing some working out, then that's going to be absolutely fine. I've got 13, 4, 35, and then I've got 90 minutes. Adding it all up. So now if I get my calculator now, you can, if you wanted to, use the time function on your calculator, which is this here. And so it's entirely up to you. So this little function here is the time. So it's 0 hours, 15 minutes, and 0 seconds, plus 0, 4, 0, plus 0, 13, 0 seconds. And let me just double check to make sure. I think I've messed one of those up and forgot to put end time for each of those. And again, you might find using this calculator and use the time feature on your calculator a little bit of a faff. So let's see what we've got to. So we've got 15, the 4 minute gap, 13, and I've got to add the 4 minute gap. Plus 35. I keep forgetting the time on the end. plus 35. Nope. I've done it again. Plus 0, 4, 0, plus 1 hour and 30 minutes and 0 seconds. And pressing equals, and that gives me a total time of 2 hours and 45 minutes. So 1:50 p.m. plus 2 hours and 45 minutes is going to give me a time of 4:35 p.m. and there is my final answer. The other alternative is adding how many minutes you get, and then we can then just simply add that to, and that'll give me 245. I then add that to, I forgot a 4 in there as well, just put that 4 there, and you can then, once you've got the 2 hours and 45 minutes, you then add it on to 150 and you get your 4:35 final answer. So let's just put that there. And if you wanted to work in a 24-hour clock, then that's absolutely fine as well. 35, it should be not 25. There we go. Let's just write that properly. And there we go. So work with question 9. It says the table shows the number of messages Sam received each day for 5 days, and you can see that he's received emails and text messages. And question 9a says Sam draws a composite bar chart to represent the data. He has drawn the bar for Monday. So a composite bar chart is where you're adding, rather than having the bars side by side on the same day, instead you just have one on top of the other. So here you can see that the emails are the lower bar and the text messages are the upper bar. Now for this, what I'm going to do is first zoom out a little bit so I can see everything on the screen. So for this, we need to make sure that we're using a ruler. Now again, it's going to be very difficult for me to do that, but let's just see if we can work this out. Now there's several ways in which you can do this. I'm going to just quickly work out the totals for the total lengths of the bars. So that's going to be 14, 13, 12 and 16. And the reason why I'm doing this is just so it's easy for me to plot, because I'm going to try and set a good example and try and do this as neatly as possible. So 14 is going to be up to here, which again is going to be a little bit difficult, like so. And then the next bar is 13. So again, I need to go up to 13, which is about there. And again, with the grids, you want to try and be as neat as possible as you can get. And the next one is 12. Oh, can use that. And then just alter it, so going up to 12, just to make it a little bit skinnier. And then finally 16, and which is going up to, oh, don't know why I've deselected it. So 16 is there. Like so. So the only thing I've now got to do is to draw the lines to split the bars between emails and text messages. So for the first one, I'm going up to 8. So I'm just going to draw a line at 8. The next one is at 10. Next one is at 6. And next one is at 12. And there we go. Now if you want to shade it in, that's entirely up to you, but generally speaking, that should be absolutely fine. And there we go. Now don't worry if you've got a light grey, you don't feel the need to colour it exactly how it is. As long as you split the bars, you're going to be absolutely fine. So 9b says, in total, what fraction of messages were emails? So the first thing we need to do is add up how many messages there were for each of the sort of items. So again, if I add up the number of emails, I've got 12 plus 8, which is 20, 30, 36, 48. And I add up the number of text messages, so that's 11, 14, 20, 24. So there were a total of 72 messages. And so out of those 72, 48 were emails. So for question 9b, I've got 48 over 72, which I can simplify because it's asked me for its simplest form, which is 2 over 3. Now again, when you are doing this on a calculator, there's no excuses for not being able to simplify your answers. When you're using fractions, you just type it in, 48 over 72, press equals, simplifies it automatically. Now for question 10, it's saying that each side of a square is made 3 times as long. What happens to the perimeter? Now, some of these questions are quite self-explanatory. You could probably guess what the answer is going to be, but let me show you how you could potentially work it out. So if you imagine you've got a simple square of 1 by 1. Now that's got a perimeter of 4. Now if I make that 3 times as big, that means that each side is going to be 3, and that's going to give me a perimeter of 12. So what the question I need to ask myself is, what do I need to multiply 4 to get 12? Well, that's going to be times by 3, so I circle times 3. Now for question 11, it says, here is a list of ingredients needed to make 6 pancakes. So I've got flour, eggs, and milk. It says, complete the list of ingredients needed to make 9 pancakes. So the first thing you need to do, or one of the options to do in this, is to work out what the ingredients you need to make 1 pancake. Now for 1 pancake, what I need to do is divide it by how many of these can make for this one. So I'm going to divide each of these by 6. So 120 divided by 6 equals 20 grams. 2 divided by 6 gives me a third of an egg. And 210 divided by 6 gives me 35 milliliters. So these are the ingredients I need to make 1 pancake, and I need to make 9. So what I then need to do is times each of these numbers by 9. And so if I then do that, then what I end up with is, and let me just get the calculator reloaded. So 20 times 9 gives me 180 grams. Eggs, a third times 9 gives me 3, and 35 times 9 gives me an answer of 315 milliliters. And again, try not to forget the units that is needed for this particular question. Now for 11b, it says convert 210 milliliters into fluid ounces, and it's given us this key that we need. So for this, what I need to do is divide 210 by 28.4. So 210 divided by 28.4. I'm going to type that into my calculator. So I've got 210 divided by 28.4 equals, and I've got 7.39, so 7.39, and I've forgotten the digits, 43, 66, 43, 66, 197, and I want to round this number up to 1 decimal place. So again, it's going to be 7.4, and there is my final answer. Then moving on to question 12. Question 12 says, reflect shape A in the x-axis. Now the x-axis is this axis here, so that is going to be my mirror line. So to calculate this, what I need to do is just simply count the number of lines. Each of those 3 points is away from the mirror line, and you find that 3 points are going to be just there. And then with a ruler, all I then need to do is join the points up to make the new reflected triangle. And again, not saying a very good example, should be using a ruler, and there is your reflected shape. Moving on to question 13, it says that a charity sends an appeal letter to 3,000 people. The letter asked for a donation of money, and here is some information about the last appeal letter the charity sent out. So it says that half of the people who were sent the letter made a donation. So from this, what we need to do is let's just get some key bits of information. So half of the people, well, if 300 people were sent the letter, so that means that 1,500 people made a donation. Now this question is worth 6 marks, which is quite a lot of marks, and failure to attempt to work these out. So I would probably say you'd get 1 mark just for working out what 1,500 people is. Now it says that the average donation was £8.60. So again, another bit of key information, and it says that a third of people who made a donation filled out a tax form. Now a third of 1500 is going to be 500. So 500 people filled out a tax form. And it said that the government adds 25% of the donations to these particular people. So from this bit of information, what we've got is we've got 500 people donated £8.60, and on top of that £8.60 they get a 25% increase, so that's going to be 1.25, because again 100 plus 25 is 125, and that as a percentage, and that as a decimal is 1.25. So typing this all into my calculator, I get 500 times 8.6 times 1.25 equals, and that's 5375. So 5375. Now they are the people who filled that tax form, and we got the government bonus. So that means that just if there were 1,500 people that made a donation, 5 of them got like a government bonus. So that means just 1,000 of them didn't get that bonus. So what I need to do is do 1,000 times £8.60, which is 8,600. And then from this, what I then need to do is add these total amounts up. So again, using a calculator, or I'll just be lazy and add these all up. So I've got 9 and 5 plus 8, which is 13. So the charity made 13,975, and there is the final answer. So then moving on to the next question, which is going to be question 14. Let's have a look at what this question says. So it says, no, question 13b rather. It says the average donation from people who filled out a tax form was more than £8.60. How does this affect your answer in part A? Now for this, it should be that the answer is going to be, well, if they're paying more, then it basically means that the answer should be higher. And the reason for this is because we've just assumed, so we have assumed that these people will pay the minimum amount which was quoted, or the average amount, which was £8.60. And so something along those lines would be absolutely fine. You can also use quotes of where you could say that the interest would be more, the 25% would be more if they're paying more, because we've only taken 25% increase on the £8.60. You could say that the donations from the tax again would have increased. The people who filled out the tax form paid more. Tax is usually an increase, and if it's higher, so they receive more, and they can go from there. Now, working with question 14, the question saying that Lee wants to draw the graph y equals x for the values x equals -5 to 5. And the question is asking us to state 2 possible criticisms as to what he has not done correctly. Now, in terms of this, well, the key indication in terms of the 2 criticisms is that he has plotted it incorrectly, because the line should continue going from there. Now, y equals x goes along the points where the x ordinate is the same as the y ordinate, and which are these points here. And if you're going to minus numbers, you should have -1 to -1, -2 to -2. And it's saying it's going from -5 to 5. Now, he's only plotted it from 4, so there is our 2 criticisms. So our 2 criticisms is that he's not finished, so not plotted to -5 and 5, and also the fact that the left hand side of the line is upside down. And something along those lines would be absolutely fine. So you could say he's on the other half and it's not reflected. That would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 15. So question 15 says that a company uses the formula to work out the cost of £8 of a taxi ride. So it says to work out the total cost, it's 4 plus 1.8 times every mile that's travelled plus a fixed charge. A booking for a B is a charge for booking online. So 4 is the fixed charge that you always, no matter whether you're like traveling 1 meter, you're going to get charged £4. So it says Claire books a taxi online and travels 8 miles. She pays £20 altogether. So for this, what we need to do is make this, well, A equals 20, that M equals 8, and what I need to do is I need to substitute these two values into this formula. So what I've got is I've got 4 plus 1.8 times 8 plus B, which I don't know, and that equals 20. So what I need to do is I need to work out what these two things here add up to. So if I get my calculator out, I do 4 plus and then bracket 1.8 times 8, and that gives me an answer of £18.40. So I've got £18.40 plus B equals £20. So to work out B, I need to take that away. And so that means that the booking charge is going to be £1.60. And there is the final answer. So it says that a different company has a fixed charge of £3, charges £1.90 per mile, and there's no booking charge for booking online. And the question says, write down a formula for C. So it says C equals, so it's going to be a fixed charge of £3, that's 3, plus £1.90 per mile, so it's 1.9 M, and there's no booking charge, so I can either write plus 0 or I could leave that out, and there is my final answer. Then for question 16, it says, what does A and then this little hoop sign B represent in the probability of A and that hoop sign B? Well, that basically means and. So when you're dealing with probability, let me just get rid of that because I don't want to put that there. So if you've got A, that, and B, then that basically means A and B. If the little hoop thing was the opposite way round, so it looked like a U, actually not a physical U, so let me just get rid of that, and was the opposite way round, then that would be A or B. Now if you see a little dash, then that basically means not A, and if you saw a not B, that basically a B dash, that means not B. And there's just some little indications of some probability notation. So moving on to question, don't know why that's coming up. With question 17, it says a circle has a circumference of C and a diameter of D. It says that C equals KD. What value does the constant K represent? Well, obviously to work out the circumference of a circle, that C equals pi times D. So if C equals KD, then that basically means that these two things must be the same. So what value does it represent? Well, it represents 14157 and then blah blah blah. Now if you want the exact value, what you need to do is press shift and your pi button on your calculator, press equals, and it comes up like that. And that should be a 9, not a 7. A little bit embarrassed. Oh. And let's just stick a 9 there, and so forth. Now the question is, could you get away with just saying pi? And looking at the mark scheme, they would allow it. So if you said pi or use the pi symbol, then that is absolutely fine as well. Obviously if you use 3.14, that's fine. You don't need to go crazy with the decimal numbers. That's entirely up to you. So then moving on to question 18, it says there are 240 cows on a farm. On the farm, number of bulls to the number of cows is 1 to 30. How many bulls are there? So looking at this, we've got bulls and we've got cows, and the ratio is 1 to 30. So if this is 240, we need to work out what this number here is. So you think to yourself, what do you have to multiply 30 to get 240? Well, you can always do the opposite, divide the two numbers together, and basically we need to times by 8. So then what we then need to do is do the same to this. So 1 times 8 is going to give me 8. Now question 18b says that assume that 240 cows produce 10 months each produce milk for 10 months per year. Thankfully, they get 2 months off. Each cow produces an average of 25 litres of milk per day. Estimate the total milk production in litres of the 240 cows per year. So first things first, we need to work out how many days there are in 1 month. Now, there's a tough one in terms of this one. I would usually say or assume that in 10 months, we can assume that so 1 month, we can say that there's on average about 30 days, give or take. Because it doesn't actually say which month, so I could count if it said from January to October, inclusive of those months, then that's fine. I could do the months, but it doesn't actually say. So I don't know if February is included. I don't know how many months of 31 are included. So I'm just going to take an average of 30 days. And then so 10 months is going to be that number times 10, and that's going to be 300 days. And it says that an average cow can produce 25 litres. So 1 cow is going to be 300 times 25. And if I type that into my calculator, so 300 times 25 gives me an answer of 7,500 litres per year. And the question is asking for 240 cows. So 240 cows, oh, no, I'm spelling it with an E, is going to be 7,500 times 240. And again, I'm going to type that into my calculator. So 7,500 times 240 equals, and that's 18 with 5 zeros. So I'm going to write 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there is my final answer. Now, for this question in the mark scheme, they did give you a range of acceptable answers, and it all really depends on how many days you are thinking there are in the 12 months. Now, typically, you could have any answer along the days of 280, 300, which is what I went for. You could have 310, 303, 304, or 305. Now, with any of these values, what you then want to do is times that by 25. I don't know why I've put an extra times there, so I'll just get rid of that. Keep doing that. There we go. And times by 25, 25, 25, and then you times each of those answers by 240 by the number of cows. So again, if you've used any of those answers, then that would be absolutely fine. And what I do is just go through each of what you should have possible answers. So you should have 16, 80, 1, 2, 3. And you could have 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is what we got. You could have 1, 8, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3. You could have 1, 8, 1, 8, 1, 2, 3. You could have 1, 8, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3. Or you could have 1, 8, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So any of those particular answers would get you the 4 marks. And again, it all based on how many days you've calculated as being the 10 months. So moving on to question 19, you can see it's a right angle triangle. Show that x equals 12. Now this is a Pythagoras theorem question. So first things first, we're going to label our triangle ABC, in which we've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So here we've got 7.2 squared plus 9.6 squared equals x squared. Then x squared on the calculator is going to give me, and again just typing this up, so I've got 7.2 squared plus 9.6 squared equals 144, and x equals the square root of 144, so x equals 12, and that's what they've asked me to show. Then moving on to question 20, it says work out the values of a and b to the identity. Now with identities basically means that the left hand side can be algebraically written as the right hand side. It's basically approximately the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply out this left hand side. So using loops, I got 5 times 7x, which is 35x, plus 5 times 8, which is 40, plus, and again to switch colors, I've got 3 times 2x, which is 6x, plus 3 times b, which is 3b. And that is all equivalent to ax plus 13. Now, if I neaten up this left-hand side, and looking at the x's, I've got 41x plus 40 plus 3b. Now, a is the number of x's that I've got, so a must equal 41. Now, in terms of this basically means that this must equal 13. So I've got 40 plus 3b equals 13. So to get rid of the 40, I need to take that away. So I get 3b equals 27 or minus 27. I divide that by 3, and minus 27 divided by 3 gives me minus 9, and there are my two values. At question 21, which is looking at sequences, it says the first 4 terms of linear sequence are 7, 11, 15, 19. Circle the expression of the nth term. Now for this, what we need to do is, first of all, how do we find the nth term of a sequence? Well, let's just quickly go through it. So again, first thing you want to do is work out the difference between each of the numbers, which we know is plus 4. So that means that 4n is going to be in the formula. Now, once you've got that, you want to think to yourself, well, what do I need to get to 4 to get to the first term? We need to add 3, which means that your nth term is going to be 4n plus 3, which is your second option. Then moving on to question 22. The question 22 says that here is some information about 20 trains leaving a station, and it's in group data. And it says work out the estimate for the mean number of minutes late. So the first thing you want to do, now the key is giving you a midpoint. And so working through this, I've got, this is going to be my x, this is my frequency, and I need to create an fx column. Now for this, the midpoint is I need to work out the middle number between the two bounds that I've got. Now if you're not too sure how to do this, simply add those two numbers together and divide by 2. So here's the first one's going to be 2.5. Then I've got 10 plus 5, which is 15, divided by 2 is 7.5. And then 15 plus 10, which is 25, divided by 2 is 12.5. Now this one, there is no midpoint, so I'm just going to leave that blank. But because I'm timing them by 0 to work out the fx column, in which all I need to do is just multiply these numbers together, and that bottom one is going to be 0. So the next thing that I need to do is get the calculator and start working the last column out. So I've got 12 times 2.5, which gives me 30. Then I've got 7 times 7.5, which gives me 52.5. And then I've got 12.5. Now to work out the mean, it's the total fx divided by the total frequency. So the total fx is going to be where I add up the fx column, so that's 30 plus 52.5 plus 12.5 gives me an answer of 95. And if I add up this column here, I've got 90, and that's going to be 20. So to work out the mean, I need to do 95 divided by 20, and I'm going to again type that into my calculator. So 95 divided by 20 equals 4.75, and there is my final answer. Then it says for 22b, it says the station manager looks at the information in more detail and he split it all up. It says he works out the estimate for the mean using the information. How does the estimate compare to your answer in part 1? Well, let's have a look. Now, in terms of the midpoints, we've taken that because we haven't got the exact values, we've used midpoints as each of those individual times. So these 12 trains were late between the limits of 0 and 5, and we've just assumed that all of them are, those 12 trains are 2.5 minutes late. And the same for these 7 trains, we've assumed that they're all 7.5 minutes, 7.5 minutes, and these trains here were 12.5. Now it's a bit fiddly when looking at this, but let's just have a look in terms of working this out. Now, working in terms of the midpoints, this is going to be, in terms of looking at it, we can see that it's going to be, well, if we look at the midpoints, that's going to be 1, that's going to be 0, that's going to be 5, that's going to be, and this is going to be 11. So looking at the total sum, so in terms of the total fx, if you imagine that's what we're working out, then here I've got 11, I've got 35, and I've got 12. Now if I add up those three numbers, I get 47, 58 minutes. Now you can see that when I totaled these numbers up, that it actually gave me a score of 95. And this is giving me a total of 58. So therefore it's going to be lower than part A. Now for question 23, it's saying two identical quarter circles are cut from a rectangle as shown. And the question is asking me to work out the shaded area. Now for this, to work out the shaded area, so the shaded area is going to be equal to the big shape, which is the area of the rectangle. So let me just get rid of the R. So it's equal to the area of the rectangle minus the area of the two semicircles, quarter circles I should say. And so what I need to do is I need to work out what these two bits here are. Now working out the area of the rectangle, well, that may seem a bit of a challenge because I don't know what this here is. Now the key thing is that with it being two circles, that there proves to be a square. So that then is going to be 6 and that is going to be 6. So the area of the rectangle is going to be 12 times 6, which is 72 centimeters squared. Now in terms of the area of the quarter circle, the area of a full circle is pi times r squared. So a quarter circle is going to be that divided by 2. So the quarter circle is going to be pi times the radius, which is 6 squared, divided by 4. And again, if I type that into my calculator, so I've got pi times 6 squared, press equals, divide that by 4, and it gives me an answer of 9 pi. So then the shaded area is going to be 72, take away 9 pi, which is 1 quarter circle, minus another quarter circle. So if I type that all into my calculator, so I've got 72 minus 9 pi minus 9 pi equals, and I get an answer of 15.45. And I'm just check the rounding. Yep, that's absolutely fine, to 2 decimal places. Now instead of using 9 pi, if you actually want to work out the decimal of that, so if I just type that in, so 9 pi is equivalent to 28.27, so 28.27, then that would be absolutely fine. So if you replace 9 pi with 28.27 and 28.27, then that is also fine as well. Another thing that you may have done is that 2 quarter circles equals 1 semicircle. So you might, instead of working with quarter circles, you might decide to work with 1 semicircle, but the final answer should be exactly the same. In 24, it says the diagram shows the position of a tap when off and fully on. So the tap to be on is 0, and then fully on is 180 degree turn. When fully on, the water flows out of the tap 14 litres per minute, at the rate at which the water flows is directly proportional to the angle of the turn. So basically what that means is that the depending on how far you turn it, that is based on, it's related to how much water comes out. So it's not a case of you turn it a quarter, it's going to be directly. So if that's 14 litres per minute, then if I did half of that, then that would be 7 litres. Now the question is asking that it's going to be somewhere, it's going to be exactly in between those two amounts. Now there's one or two ways in which you can do that. So if you think about yourself, well, okay, what numbers between 7 and 14, 7 and 14, well, that's going to be 10.5 litres. So it's going to be looking at a rate of 10.5 litres per minute. Now, another way of doing this is to think to yourself, okay, what's 14 litres if that's 180 degrees? Well, if I divide that, then that's going to give me the rate of litres for 1 degree. So if I do 14 divided by 180 equals, and that's going to give me 0.077 recurring. So it's going to be 0.07 recurring litres per degree. And I've got 135 degrees. So if I times that by 135, it should give me 10.5. And let me just double check to make sure that that is all okay. And yeah, absolutely spot on. So the rate I'm looking at is 10.5 litres per minute. Now it says that the water tank is 79.8 litres. And the question is saying, will it take less than 7.5 minutes? So what I need to do here is do 79.8 divided by 10.5 and type that into my calculator. And hopefully the answer is going to be less than 7.5. So let's have a look to see if that is true. So I've got 79.8 divided by 10.5 equals, and it gives me an answer of 7.6. So the question says, will it take less than 7.5 minutes? Well, the answer is going to be no, it will take longer. And there is the final answer for that one. And so the next question, it then says, question 25 says that the triangle is equilateral. It basically means that all the sides are the same. It says, is the perimeter of the triangle greater than 1 meter? So with it being equal, what we need to do is work out what x is. Now, as it's equilateral, this side is going to be the same as this side. So what I've got is I've got 6x minus 10, because obviously what I need to do is work out what x is, plus 5. And then so we take away the smallest x, so I've got 2x minus 10 equals 5. Take the 10 over, I get 2x equals 15. Get to the answer straight too quickly. So x equals 7.5. So now that I know what 7.5 is, I can then work out what the perimeter of the total shape is. So this side here is going to be 6 times 7.5 minus 10. It's 6x minus 10, and x is 7.5. So I type that into my calculator. 6 times 7.5 equals minus 10 equals 35. Well, if that's 35, then this is going to be 35, and that's going to be 35. You could substitute it, but it tells you it's equilateral, so I'm going to be a little bit smart about this. So then the total perimeter is going to be 35 times 3, which is going to give me 35 times 3. Let me just do that on the calculator. 35 times 3 equals 105 centimeters. And so is the perimeter greater than 1 meter? Yes, it is greater than 1 meter. Let's just make that n. There we go. And so then moving on to question 26. So it says an approximation for the value of pi is given by this. So what we need to do, and the question says use your calculation to show that the approximation is within 0.1 of 3.14. So what we need to do is we need to enter this on your calculator. Now hopefully you've got a decent calculator to work through this, and I'm going to show you. We're going to enter it exactly how it's written on this screen. So I've got 4 brackets, and I've got 1 minus, select the fraction button, I've got 22 over 57, and then I've got plus 22 over 85, scroll across, minus another fraction, I've got 22 over 105, and then I've got plus another fraction of 22 over 117, and then the last fraction, which is 22 over 242, and then I just need to close the bracket, and I get like that. Press equals, hope I don't get syntax error, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to type out all this answer out. So the answer to this is 3.01, and let me just double check the numbers. Actually 04183, and let's just have a look at the other numbers. 4183 39619, so 39619. Now the question is saying I need to show that it's within 0.01 of 3.14. So what I now need to do is do 3.14 minus this number and show that it's within 0.01. So again, I'm going to use my answer function on my calculator. I've got 3.14 minus the answer again, or you can just type in that number, that's absolutely fine. Press equals, and it gives me an answer of 0.0891, and 0.0891 is less than 0.1, and that's going to be absolutely fine. Or you could say, if you don't want to use inequalities, you could say this is less than 0.1, and that would be absolutely fine. And then finally, for the last question, it's a case of entering this using is standard form. And again, this is quite a simple question for the last question. So I'm going to set up my fraction. I'm going to type in exactly how it's written on the question. So I've got 9.12, and then use my standard form button to power of 10. Scroll down, I've got 3.2 times 10 to the power of 4. Press equals, and this gives me an answer of 285 and then 4 zeros. So then what I need to do is convert this into standard form. So I'm going to use those three numbers and write it as number between 1 and 10. So that's 2.85. And the next thing I then need to do is count the decimal place. So my decimal point is going to go here. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's times 10 to the power of 6. And there is my final answer.